Welcome everybody to AGL. Today we got some special games for you as we will be doing some collegiate league playoffs. We have the University of Michigan versus the Illinois State Redbirds. Excuse me, that was the last match there. Arizona State versus Illinois. Yeah, no, I had it almost right. And with me on this cast here, I have the wonderful Supersonic Blur. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad the weather's finally getting a little bit colder now and things, but, you know, what we're here for is the hot plays, not the hot weather.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Got that heat outside, but hopefully we'll see some heat here for the cast. But you've seen a little bit of these teams play, and you've said they got some spicy picks that they've run before, so I'm kind of excited to see what we got here.
Yeah, University of Michigan, this is a team which has had some very, very strong plays, specifically around that mid lane. They've been running with their sub Eric Deeg for quite a while of this. Last time I saw them play, we got to see an Arpwash come out from the mid, which, in all honesty, looked absolutely fantastic. This is a team comp which has really sort of focused itself around that core 3v3 and how they play. And now with this mid-season change, with how mages can get their power spikes online a little bit faster, with some of the changes to how certain gods feel in terms of a meta, this is going to be really, really fun to see how this team has taken that and run with it. Because if they're running through the mid lane and mages are really strong, oh boy, that's going to be quite the challenge to fight into.
Yeah, Alposh is definitely a pick we don't really see. I personally think it's one of the lower end picks, and as a jungle main, I love going against an Alposh. But hey, if you got a strong pick and you're able to run it, can't say no to that. And with that, then I think we are ready to jump into these picks and bans here. And since we've been talking about the Alposh, do you expect some kind of jank off the bans, or do you expect some more meta stuff as we head into game one?
I think game one is one that you can use as a test the waters. I don't think that too much jank is necessarily a good thing unless you're really confident and comfortable in how well you can play that. I like this, the first game in a series to be sort of a test the waters. Play something that's comfortable for you, get a feel for where your limits are with the team, especially on this new map. There are a lot of new factors that you can bring in, new relic changes, new starts for situations. So throwing too many new things at the wall can also kind of make it difficult for teams to realize what went well, what went wrong, and how you can adapt it if too much has changed. So as we're seeing ban-wise, first is Gilgamesh. This is just a strong god. Why do we want to deal with it? We don't. Let's just get rid of it.
Yeah, despite the map changing, some things never change, and Gilgamesh is still very annoying to go against, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. But yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of those map changes, especially there, I know a lot of people are happy that those vines are gone, opens up the map. But some things, again, another standard pick, we see Athena, still another really strong pick.
And Athena is one that can kind of capitalize a lot on small mistakes, be that in the jungle, be that in the support role. These kind of gods, specifically sort of Gilgamesh and Athena, are gods who can very easily punish small mistakes and turn them into problems. If you're slightly out of position, taunt or drop kick, and suddenly you're looking at kill potential here. You've got a lot of more problems to try and fight around with those, so getting rid of those takes away a lot of punishability for both of these two teams. Not to mention as well, they're just really, really strong, and I could see Pies of Doom running both the Gilgamesh and the Athena. Tiamat, maybe not the Tiamat for Pies of Doom, but definitely for Eric here, something that's very strong, but also something that you don't necessarily want to fight against. The minions, despite their nerf, only getting 2 spawns of those and them not being able to push down the structures as effectively when it comes to the sort of the Titan and the Phoenix, it's still really, really strong, and there's still a lot of play around potential that you can force because of those minions, because they can still push minions in, which causes a whole other slew of issues for you. And so getting rid of that. This Ymir, though, that's a bit more spicy here. Was not expecting a Ymir ban, so maybe Illinois knows something about Michigan that we don't.
I mean, I think Ymir ban as far as what you're comfortable with, and it's a solid support. We've seen specifically Wrong You at the start of this season that's been able to run it expertly, and a good Ymir is a Ymir that I never want to face, and not a ban that I hate here.
Yeah,
flexibility as far as the Gilgamesh and Athena, and while Tiamat not flexible, she's got a lot of buttons to push, which is, I think, no matter how many nerfs she has, is always going to feel strong.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing some more looks towards that mid lane. There's still a lot of strong gods that we've seen. Sort of Scylla's been very, very popular. Raijin's a good look. Soul, because of that sort of... Did we ever discover whether or not it was a bug or such with the being able to proc a basic attack practically straight after the 2? Even with that small shift that got sort of tweaked in the last patch, this is still something that could be very, very strong, given the fact that now mages, if they're in the mid lane, could say, all right, I'm just going to run Sands of Time into Spear of Deso, into Spear of the Magus, and then just run at you incredibly quickly. That's some serious flat pen early. Soul abuses that fantastically well, and with Spear of the Magus being an option as well, you can even see her in the Hunter role as well. We know we've seen her flirt about there, as it seems. But last ban for the ban phase at first sight is going to be Raijin. So 3 mages, 3 guardians taken off the table. Michigan to first pick here.
Yeah, like you asked for, you wanted to see some more mid lane bans potentially. You got him with that Soul and Raijin. 3 really strong picks. And that does kind of leave me in an interesting spot to see if they're going to go for maybe just a safe pick, maybe go with like an ADC or support, kind of nothing super crazy, but just strong, or if they maybe want something in particular they want to grab. Nothing really going off the top of my head, though, as far as what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, ADCs as well. ADCs with the new sort of build, they've been liking a lot of sort of the Hunter's Cowl with 4 bows and a Titan's Bane and Kin size. So a lot of Hunters can abuse that. So unless you're really super solid on a specific Hunter you want for Brooklyn here, then there's a lot of safe options. This Sobek is fantastic. Gives something aggressive to Pies of Doom. If something looks like it's going to be a bit too difficult in the duo lane for that, throw it to solo. I don't know whether or not the Guardian solos will be as effective as we'd like them to be in the current situation. A lot of fighters masks getting picked up, so could be a little bit harder. But hey, I'm waiting to see someone pull out the fighter's mask on a Guardian for the solo lane. It's 70 magical power right off the bat, so maybe we see it here. But with Osiris Hover here, that's a very, very dominant solo lane look, especially with mannequins or Death's Toll or Fighter's Mask. There's a lot of scary potential with this Osiris. This is a fun one to run a lot of pressure with.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Guardians in the solo lane, but I'm not a huge fan of playing any Guardian into Osiris, just with the sheer pressure and damage that he has. So I would expect to see that Sobek go into the support role, but Fafnir now hovered. Looks like Illinois State wants to kind of lock in their front line here, and with some of these kind of hunter, ability hunters with the Chiron, the Soul, Neath, even Uller that we've seen a lot of in here, I really like the Fafnir pick this time of year.
It's not too bad, and it's fairly safe. It also, as well, kind of has this threat of, well, what else are we picking? Oh, this is a god that really loves giving a massive AoE auto-attack buff to the whole team. So we got to start thinking, do we want to pick up our hunters here? What about our junglers? Do we have to worry about a Kali suddenly now? There's a lot of threat of what this Fafnir looks like, which could throw University of Michigan for a loop, though we are still in the top side of picks here. So University of Michigan with their 2 here. That is an Artemis Hover, and there have been some murmurings and ripples on the surface of the water of Artemis is a fantastic hunter in this current meta. And honestly, the way that this goes, you've got a quick early power spike because you don't need to buy boots. You've got a ridiculously high attack speed situation, a great teamfight ultimate. With the way that University of Michigan play, Kid from Brooklyn doesn't turn up till 15, 20 minutes into the game. Give them one of the best gods to just power farm on.
Yeah, and when you have this Fafnir picked in already, you kind of want to set up your own duo lane for a good matchup and a hunter you might not want the enemy to have. And as we've seen some SPL players like Cyclone and Zapman start to pull this out, I expect to see some more picks like Artemis as well. Really strong pick, especially paired with that Sobek. Pluck into the trap is very frustrating to play into, I'm sure.
Quite the transgressor's fate, if anything, should misstep there, though. We'll have to see whether or not University of Michigan takes charge, prey, in that lane. Janus, though, rounding out their top side of picks here, and this is, again, something super safe. If Eric does end up popping off, this Janus enables him to rotate the entire team to cause pressure everywhere. If not, again, it's that same mentality of this is just a really strong guard who can help the rest of the team. University of Michigan have got safe picks that can help snowball a lead, whereas Illinois State, on the other side, it feels a lot more that they have to get this control. They have to have this early pressure. This Osiris and Fafnir don't do a whole lot by themselves. They sort of fuel someone else going in to any kind of team fight. So Illinois is maybe wanting to run some kind of hyper carries here. Merlin in the mid isn't too bad of an option here. Definitely got some strong wave clear, and if you wanted to run some early kinds of sort of double flat pens, then Merlin's a fantastic god with so many abilities able to cast, and it is going to get locked in for the top side. So junglers and solo for Michigan, and jungle and ADC for Illinois are what remain.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of picks here that I'm excited with the new patch, and Merlin is one of them. For those who don't know, Staff of Mirrodin got a huge rework now. Rather than giving you an extra ability, gives you a ton of extra cooldown, I believe 80%, and kind of cools down. And when you have Merlin, who thrives on throwing off so many abilities, I'm excited to see that personally. But now that we have this first phase wrapped up, we see the wheel expand now come through. To kind of get that band as we see a jungler band focus, and as you mentioned, one of those hyper carries. Do you think we're going to see more of that, or just some more niche picks kind of as far as both sides for these first top threes that have both been very strongly focused in, I would say, on each side?
I think jungle is definitely a safe option to go with right now. Like we said with the first pick, Sobek, Illinois know that they've got jungle and solo, whereas their solo, they don't necessarily have to worry too much. It's Osiris, who, at worst, holds even in a lane, and even then it's very difficult to lose lane as Osiris, so you're not too worried about that kind of matchup. They just want to get some counterplay on the jungles. The Awilish is an interesting one, given that University of Michigan don't have any kind of leaps or any kind of major knockups that they've got to worry about, or Illinois have no leaps, and Michigan don't really have any knockups to speak of aside from Sobek, so I'm surprised that they opted to ban the Awilish, but Fenrir makes a lot of sense. A very strong kind of early game dominance, can set up with the Giannis fantastically, strong beats burner, great into the mid-late game team fights. And with the way that builds are sort of progressing in the jungle, we're seeing a lot of looks to Serrated Edge, and Fenrir is one of the best junglers, in my opinion, that can run Serrated Edge.
Yeah, Fenrir is personal favorite of mine, just with the flexibility of builds, like you mentioned, the Serrated Edge in particular that he can go really well with. But as we see the rest of these bands come through, a little bit more kind of overall, as we see the Fenrir, as you mentioned, and now a Tsukiyomi and Danza band out by Michigan here, kind of makes me think that they're just kind of covering their bases and they're kind of comfortable with what they're going to be picking here. Whereas Illinois, they're probably looking for a little bit more counterplay with that Awilix, kind of a little bit more uncommon pick, in that Fenrir, which, while a strong jungler, is a little bit more matchup dependent.
I wouldn't mind seeing the jungle pickup here for Illinois, but with the hover of Anha, they could look for it. I mean, if we look at what other jungles are available, there's Loki, there's Kali was another one I mentioned, who, if you get Kinsai's first item, feels very, very strong. What else could we be looking at? Thor's not necessarily the worst option if they want to get some kind of early global rotation, but they are going to go ahead and lock in this Anha and leave that jungle pick for last. With Fafnir and Anha, it's a fairly aggressive lane, but it's mostly on the Anha to sort of get that initiation, be that aggressive. Fafnir has to sort of follow up that and try and help the Anha be aggressive, rather than Fafnir being aggressive because they're Fafnir, whereas Sobek can just do whatever Sobek wants in this early laning phase. But I'm expecting Illinois to come out better in the duo lane given this matchup, and what University of Michigan pick here could be very impactful. They're looking for the jungle and solo, like we mentioned. This is where this draft comes together now on what they want to last pick here.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility, like you mentioned, and just with that dual lane matchup, I would also agree, kind of favors Illinois. That Honor, while it has that leap, is very much able to either disengage or engage, even despite the Sobek fucker that the likes where Artemis is. While she has that, a little bit of that stem on her too, given that movement speed and now that cleanse that she recently got, but doesn't allow a lot of choice in that engage or disengage outside of hitting your abilities, which means that, like you mentioned, Illinois State probably has a little bit more of that. These last picks now, though, focusing around this global pressure that the Giannis has, as well as that long ult that Guan Yu has, as well as they're hovering this Ratatoskr to round out their draft.
I wouldn't mind it. The Ratatoskr can fulfill a nice niche here, similar to what the Fenrir does. The Guan Yu for the solo lane. I wonder whether or not University of Michigan are going to try and play out in the solo lane and try and alleviate pressure from the Artemis. You've got sort of two ways of thinking about it. Either we've got Artemis that we need to get to the late game. Let's just surround them, get them safe and comfortable, and then we can play elsewhere and we leave solo to be solo. Or you say, we don't want anyone focusing Artemis. Let's play the entire other lanes. Like, you go mid, you go solo, because you win those lanes really hard. And if Illinois want to put pressure on this Artemis, they're going to lose a lot elsewhere. And this Guan Yu is someone who's going to be really, really impactful for Michigan if they can get ahead, especially against Osiris. So Illinois kind of have to back off from the idea of let's just pressure the Scylla, pressure this Artemis, and now can look to try and say, right, they want to play out the solo. How do we deal with that? This Loki pick is low-key pretty good.
Yeah, and especially into the draft Michigan has, I think they're going to probably have to leave this Artemis kind of on an island. You've got the Sobek that's got really good setup, but outside of that, lots of just kind of disruption. Giannis dive, Ratatasker dive, Guan Yu dive. So it's a very in or out kind of comp. And when you look at Illinois State, where they've got the Loki that's able to go in, the Osiris who can kind of run in, this Osiris is pretty much going to have to just go on this Artemis effectively. And if Artemis kind of loses that 1v1 with that tether, really going to have to just try to work on that self-peel and hope the rest of the team can trade out favorably.
Yeah, and that's what this Loki does really well as well. Not only now can they be a fantastic team fight god, but as well, they can still fulfill that role of hiding around a corner, going invisible. You think it's that sort of comfortable spot. University of Michigan push up, and then bam, your ADC suddenly gone and Loki's in the back line, and you've got lots of problems. So while University of Michigan have this dive comp, they're going to need to ward up and make sure they keep eyes on where this Loki is, or else they could end up overextending and giving Illinois the win.
Yeah, seems a little bit favor there, but we won't hold you any long here. We'll go ahead and take you in as we have this, again, quarterfinal match of this colleges, and we'll have Bash and Vengeance. You're going to go ahead and see who gets schooled on the cast. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Batu and Blur and Passion. We're here for another collegiate matchup. Michigan versus Illinois State. And this time it's on the mid-season patch, so we have a little more spice coming in without the boots.
Not having boots certainly opens up what you can go into for builds, and it does also allow some of these later game characters like the Artemis to get online just a bit earlier, not having to worry about going into boots. You start to look at this bow build that we've been seeing a lot of, and going with the Cal for that lifesteal into it works out pretty well, and especially for a god that has a stem already in the kit, because Sulfur Branch is a part of that core bow build, so we'll see if that's the way they look, but it's been looking pretty good for Artemis.
Definitely one of the more interesting things we've seen as of lately for hunters is just all bows with the Kinsai. We see both opting for it this time around, but another interesting is the solo lane. We see Osiris with the Bluestone Pendant and Guan Yu with the Fighter's Mask, and we already see that the Guan Yu Fighter's Mask is benefiting a lot more than that Bluestone Osiris.
Fighter's Mask just gives so much power early on, having that 40 as well as the Sunder there. Doesn't look like it was used, but is available for later on. A little bit of scrapping in the mid lane though. The stun comes out and Ratatasker will have to pull out a lot of damage, but dual lane also scrapping.
This is just all over the place across the map. The second kill coming in from University of Michigan. Illinois State find their first onto the support of the Wolverines, but unfortunately over in mid, Redbirds were not able to find that kill onto Kano. He was able to get out just in time. So Eric, in the meantime, with the help of his jungler, will find the mid of the Redbirds. A return kill coming from Valkyrie, though, which means we're almost all even except for Brandon, because he's just bullying Cook at this point.
I'm not sure that we could have asked for much more of a gas-pedaled start. With having 6 kills already in a minute 47, both of these teams are coming out hot from the gates, and University of Michigan benefiting a little bit more as they are already about 1,000 gold lead, which at 2 minutes is quite a nice lead to have for yourselves. A lot of it going to be around this solo laner who is 2 levels ahead already, has got both solos, has got the Warrior's Axe online, and is starting to work into some early defense. This Guan Yu is going to be a lot to handle.
Interesting decision to go that Warrior's Axe already, whereas we usually see them just go ahead further on into the item of choice itself. But we're going to have to see how that plays out for him throughout this match. As you mentioned, these level leads are coming in across the board for Michigan. The jungler hitting free, slightly ahead of Redbirds. And the mid has about a half level to a level lead as well. Same with the support and ADC. So this is going to be interesting moving forward. Based off who rotates first, and it looks like we're going to see Redbirds make the first gank coming out of the jungler, trying to assist on this purple buff defense. And the through space in time narrowly misses, but the chase is still going to continue. The portal comes through, one takes damage, but it's not enough. The follow-up isn't there. The pull, the damage, the Merlin is here, the Dragon's Breath, he's trying to do it all. It's not enough just yet. The leap in, still can't find. This Sobek is doing so much for his own ADC, and both teams narrowly escaping death.
That's just the benefit of Sobek there, having so much peel for your ADC and the escapability. The passive gives them extra protections, which, especially early on, makes this Sobek a tankier target to try to take down. And there's just really a lot of split targeting there from Redbirds. They try to get the focus onto the Artemis, doesn't work. Then it's the Sobek, and by that point, you're kind of not going to do a lot of damage just yet. But in the solo lane, they're back at it again.
No, there's nothing new. Brian's going to use the cavalry charge. He wants to do all the damage he can. Unfortunately for him, Cook was on the tier 1 tower line, so there will be no kill as of yet. He's going to try and take advantage the best he can to just get the farm, push that lane up, and possibly try and find himself an online item sooner than Cook does. In the meantime, though, other side of the map, we see in the duo lane that Redbirds, their ADC and support may be thinking about trying to get a little more aggressive. But the longer they think about it, the more Brooklyn and Doom heal up, making it less and less likely.
This on her does provide a lot of pressure for this lane, especially into the Artemis. You have the ultimate online. The Desert Fury can mitigate using that Tusky and allow you to really fight into that well. So we'll see if they look to get aggressive. This is kind of the time that you want to do it, as Artemis is that typical late game monster that you think of ADC wise. She's a bit slow to get started, but when she's online, you're certainly going to feel it. Talking about online, this Osiris build is starting to work its way a little bit, and we see the damage coming out.
Here comes the gank from Kano, though. Uses the ultimate to get in. They're trying to find all the damage they can, and Brandon will find the kill, giving him his third so far. And he is getting bigger thanks to the help of his jungler, level 7, 5 minutes in. Through space of time, connects, but he's off the mark with the follow-up damage. Instead comes the ultimate from Valkyrie. He's unable to put him in place. He's able to get through the portal, and with his support here, it looks like he will get out safe enough. And man, that was close for both teams. It's just one of those things you don't like to see. You know, the follow-up damage just barely missing.
Unfortunate there for the Giannis. Just can't find it. And this Chronos Pendant going to be a little bit interesting for my money. You typically do want to have some cooldown, but there's just better items out there, especially for that early game power spike. Spear of Desolation is one we see a lot of. If you want to get Pin online, you're typically looking at that Charons as well. So looking at a different item could have given them that extra bit they needed to get it. Of course, Desolation going to have more in-hand power. Now, coming back over here to the duo lane, we see this Artemis is actually getting a little bit of a lead on this on her, and that can be problematic. Both ADCs, though, are testing out this bow build so far, going into this Ichabal that, talking about power, does provide a lot of it.
Here comes the plug after the damage, but the flicker is good enough to get him away from that portal. So we see Trooper's going to find himself nice and safe. Eric, unfortunately, is unable to get the damage he wants off of that one. And even with the junglers both showing up, it's only going to deter any further fighting. Although it does look like Pies may be looking for something here, possible invade. But with that red buff not being up for a little bit longer, they're going to have to try and settle. And Eric is being a little aggressive here. He find himself in an awkward spot as the Dragon's Breath comes through. So does the Hammer Stun, the ultimate transformation. He's got the poison damage, can't find. Will get the kill, but Kano comes in and trades out Valkyrie immediately mid for jungle. And I kind of want to say that's just in favor of Michigan, because that kill went to the support.
Worked out pretty well there because of, like you mentioned it, going on the support. And Kano is going to have a 2-level lead over this Loki. You certainly don't want a Ratatosker to feel this free, but hold on, Tusky used underneath the tower looking for the damage. The turnaround a little bit better, and Kano comes in, cleans that one up. But the 1v1 won by the Onher.
They still have to be careful though. The rotation from Trooper and can't find. They want to see if they can find these kills, but unfortunately aren't going to be able to do so, getting across the map too quickly. So instead they will back off, defend minions, rotate back to mid. But one thing we've been talking about is when it's these supports, it's the plays they're making. But one thing I do want to mention is the difference in the start of their build. They each have benevolence, but one goes into sovereignty, the other immediately into Thebes, and oh, what a snipe.
Fantastic snipe there by Eric. Just has the number of this Merlin, 3-level difference, and that's certainly going to do all the extra damage you need. Now, getting back to that question there for you, Vengeance, there is a little bit difference, and it kind of just depends on how you want to play it. Thebes does provide all those extra protections, both magical and physical, but it requires you to go ahead and stack things. So for the time being, you don't have all that extra protections versus going into a sovereignty. And if you know that you want to be very active early on, that's why you would pick sovereignty over the Thebes, so you can have that extra early.
Oh, we see a little gank potential over here on the left-hand side, but because of the positioning from Brooklyn, it's sniffed out and it is done away with immediately. Valkyrie, even with the ultimate being there, he decides not to commit. So instead, with this tier 1 down on the right-hand side, the tier 2 is going to be pressured, as unfortunately for Cook, he's finding himself unable to fight in his own lane.
Big difference coming out in gold and XP really across the board outside of these two supports. We see something like 5,000 gold, almost about 4.5 realistically between these two, and the XP even greater. It's kind of a moment of panic here a little bit for Illinois State. If you can't mitigate some of this bleeding, they're going to be in trouble.
Kano up in the air, comes crashing down, is off the mark, however. So instead, we do see Pies taking quite a bit of poke there from the Merlin. Instead, Eric getting kits from Brooklyn. Both will find a kill onto the ADC and jungler of Illinois State Redbirds. And with that little bit of pressure, they get off these kills. The Gold Fury will be the call.
Makes a lot of sense to pick up gold here. You've just won a pretty commanding fight, and this Gold Fury will just boost their gold lead even more. Really nice job of University of Michigan to get these picks and then immediately go straight to these objectives. A lot of times we see teams just kind of get them and then not really know what direction to go forward to, but this team looks like they've come in with a plan and they're executing it really well so far. I like what we're seeing from them.
That this Michigan team is showing their confidence in this tournament so far, just putting on all the pressure on the Redbirds, playing how they want to across the map. And the kills show for 10.5 minutes in, 10 kills to 4. The only tower down is on the side of the solo lane for the Redbirds, and a 6k gold lead nearly as well. You know, no objectives up outside of the Fire Giant Scorpion, so it's going to be interesting to see who decides to get that down. Across the map so far, nothing happening except for the solo lane, where you see Brandon yet again trying to bully Cook in his own side of the map, and he's gonna continue following him. This may be the same song and dance we've seen so far. He's gonna use the protection shred, just keeps charging forward. That Talossaw just doing too much, and Eric right around the corner with the portal is going to clean that one up. That is just not what you want to see as the solo lane of Redbirds right now. It's just a free rotation. And there's zero response really at any point right now from Redbirds.
Easy picking for a Giannis that's level 13 on the Osiris that's 3 levels down and doesn't have magical defense. It doesn't get any easier, especially with what low protections they will have from their base, stripped away from the Guan Yu. And we just haven't seen them able to punish this Guan Yu. They've been so deep into the right side up near this T2, and Redbirds haven't been able to respond, and like we've not seen those multiple rotations, but rotations, speaking about it, we're seeing around this red buff.
University of Michigan getting aggressive through space and time is used just off the mark, but the follow-up damage is not. Valkyrie does use the ultimate in return. However, Kano comes crashing down, finds the kill with the Acorn Blast, and they are going to try and find Eric. He gets the portal just out while Pies of Doom cleans up Star Trooper on the back end of this one. Kano is getting in between the enemy team and his mid laner, trying to do everything he can. In comes the Osiris. He's going to do what he wants. Kano can't find my kid anymore, though. And Eric, he got out in between the ADC and solo of Redbirds. He was left all alone, danced around, and still somehow survives. The University of Michigan 3 for none.
Very clean fight there by University of Michigan, and we're seeing them layer this CC so well, and this comp has got a lot of it. You have Tusky to apply that on multiple targets, you have the Ratatosker ultimate with the knockup, and of course the Guan Yu cavalry charge with the stun at the end. Really nice job from them there, and they're just making this Redbirds team force into fights around red buff. You either have to give up the red buff and thus the invades and you fall even further behind, or you take a fight that you're very greatly in the hole from. 8,000 gold the difference, 10,000 the XP difference, and this Pyromancer going down means that the only other objective up for the moment will be Fire Giant. University of Michigan with this kind of lead can start looking that direction pretty soon.
A little red buff invade coming out here from Valkyrie, and it looks like he does end up securing it in time. Pies of Doom showing up late. However, on the back end is Kid from Brooklyn, and man, oh man, the damage is there. Trooper finding himself falling very quickly back to the fountain in a way he didn't want to. The blink pluck though coming in. Valkyrie has to use the ultimate just to get out. Portaling through is Eric. He wants to try and help find something, but in exchange, Brandon will blink in himself, clean the kill up. 16-4, almost 14 minutes in, only 3 towers standing for the Redbirds, and this goal lead is reaching 10,000 strong.
10,000 at 14 feels like an absolute mountain to climb, and for Redbirds it really is. They found themselves in a tough spot, have not had really any lane working out for them. We saw a little bit of aggression over there in the duo lane, but the rotations around this purple buff, this red buff, have just caught them lacking a bit, and it's spread out from there. Nobody is even all that close outside the Fafnir, and while it's nice that your support is only a level apart, that's really not who you need to carry you back into things. The Onher about a level, 2 levels behind. This Artemis is starting to get to a point in their build where they're really going to be able to do a lot of damage around these objectives and even in the ecosystem of these team fights.
A little interesting to see from these builds. We see both ADCs go the Ichval. However, it's going to be Aussie execution for the Artemis and Exi into what is likely going to be a Wind Demon for the Onher. This diverging pass will be interesting how it plays out. Unfortunately for Redbirds, with this level lead that Michigan has, it's going to be very difficult to surge forward. And speaking of difficult situations, we see Grand Pops is cornered. Guan Yu, the Artemis, working in tandem. In comes the Ratatosker, and Kid from Brooklyn will secure the kill onto Grand Pops. We're now in a 4v5. Our Giant is up. Pyromancer down already. But instead, the Oni Fury will be pulled by the University of Michigan Wolverines. They want to get this down. They do. And that is some pressure across the map that Redbirds, they're going to have to pay attention to.
Nice job of just spotting out the Onher and collapsing, and then you get a pretty free Oni on the backside of it. Always feels good, but Ratatosker wants more, lands in the mid lane, will get the dash and the kill as Kano picks up Trooper in the mid lane. This Merlin has not had a great go of it either. 0-5-1 just hasn't worked out well, and the jungle pressure, to their credit, has not really been there from this Loki, who also has had pretty slim footing throughout this game. One thing that almost happened there, though, was a bit of a Hail Mary around the Fire Giant, which would have been an interesting call and could have changed things into their favor a little bit. I'm not sure if they would have been able to get it with their levels, but it would have definitely added some spice.
Well, unfortunately, with their ADC down, I don't think the Fire Giant would have been that easy to take. Matter of fact, may have lost members themselves, but in the end of the day, they've got to try and find whatever opening they can to get this goal lead down at this point, because it's going to take quite the hill to climb. They want to get it in their favor. And they've got a long time to go before that, because there's only 3 tier 2s standing in the way of the University of Michigan between their Phoenixes, and how aggressive they're playing Ashen. These Phoenixes may be under siege soon.
Could be, and we see that Sobek wants to continue the aggression, uses Lurking in the waters, but cannot catch up to the Osiris just yet, and that will be it for the chase onto the solo laner. Now, starting to focus their attention back again, and the pluck just off the mark should mean that they'll be able to get out, but heads up play from the Onher coming down this left side, working on the T2. Really good to see them try to get this farm, knowing that for the moment, at least, University of Michigan is not completely committed and now have actually turned their attention to this Fire Giant, which they should be able to get pretty easily.
Wolverines are trying to burn this one down as quickly as possible, but in come the Redbirds. They want to contest this. They're not focusing on kills, though. They are focusing on Fire Giant, and the Redbirds do steal it away. Kid from Booking takes down one. Cook finds Eric on the back head, and we are looking at a stolen situation with traded kills. We need to see if Kid can get out or not. He's trying. It looks like being cornered in. Brooklyn will find himself another kill. Redbirds, they're doing all they can to defend, but unfortunately, these losses mean that this tier 2 in mid will fall. The Phoenix may be next.
Good look at it here. Very surprised that they weren't able to take that. You have Giannis ultimate. It looks like the timing was just off the mark. Pushing in, though, is University of Michigan trying to put some damage on, but Redbirds do have Fire Giant in their pocket. It doesn't matter, though, as Brandon picks up a kill onto the Merlin. They're continuing this push.
The level difference and item difference is just too high right now. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon because Grandpa just found a double kill, taking out the dual lane of the University of Michigan. 3 members left alive as Eric just spawned back in. And he's going to focus on the left-hand side. Valkyrie uses the ultimate, finds Kano. He does manage to get the kill onto him as well. This leaves Brandon all alone. Eric is making the rotation through space and time. Falls behind him, and Valkyrie instead will find the double kill. We may see a deicide. Eric is dancing around, getting away best he can, trying to stay safe. And he's going to try and defend his own red buff unsuccessfully, though. So Cook, he has eyes on. He wants to get the target. But unfortunately, there's too many towers in the way, so his teammates will not be joining him. Eric will survive long enough for Pies to respawn. But what a defensive stand off the back of Foxy Grandpops.
About as well as it can go for Redbirds considering the situation. They steal the Fire Giant. They then get a really big defense around that Phoenix. As you mentioned it, the Onher coming in clutch for them there. And being able to pick up that many members takes away some of this gold that was building. We're now closer to about 5,000 versus 10, which is really big in all actuality for them here, even though there still is, of course, that deficit. And I feel like the Redbirds might have hurt us a little bit, and we're just like, well, we're going to take everything you just said and make you tear it up, shred it, and we are going to fight back into this deficit and make it look pretty convincing. There's still some life in this Redbird squad, and if they can get another good defense and start to work down this lead a little bit more, they can then start to look towards the offensive.
Well, as said before, that it's going to be an uphill battle, and they've already fought a good chunk of that battle, finding themselves about halfway up that hill. There's only 3 towers left standing for the Wolverines. Redbirds, they got their 1 tier 2 left. The Phoenix didn't fall earlier either, but they may be finding an opening to try and catch open. Unfortunately, though, Wolverines get there just in time. Redbirds will not be able to find the pick on Pies to do, who was all alone for quite a bit of time.
Grouping back is University of Michigan, though, and we see a little bit of a standoff around the Gold Fury now being looked at. Have 2 on the zoning duty. Redbirds are still local, could look to contest this for the moment, though. It looks like they're not going to be able to get in there, and U of M will strip this one away and are now looking for potential for a fight.
Through space, the time comes through. It looks like it may have connected onto the support of the Redbirds. They're trying to go all in as well, but the transformation comes out. Dragon form with the poison. Valkyrie finds Kano. Kit from Brooklyn takes down the Onher and the support as well for the Redbirds. Wolverines, they're trying to find whatever they can. This tier 2 they want to take down, but not their entire team seems to be committed as they're kind of split up. On the back end is Eric. He's being sneaky. The portal, the kill with the follow-up damage onto the jungler. And this only leaves 2 left standing. They want to find the Merlin. He's doing whatever he can. And unfortunately for Wolverines, it does force the mid out temporarily. Coming back, they won't be able to find the kills. Instead, the tier 2 tower falls. And they have a nice little 5v2 for about 3 seconds if they want to take this Phoenix.
Eric channeling their inner Loki just sneaks around the back and pulls one on them, but this Phoenix is taking a lot of damage. It will fall, but also the Cook will fall as they're plucked into a ton of damage coming out of this University of Michigan squad. Able to take down the T2, the Phoenix, and a kill. We're starting to see them flip things back to what we originally seen with them in the driver's seat now. Fire Giant coming up soon, likely where we'll see their turn their attention.
Unfortunate situation for Illinois State. When they climbed up the hill, they got knocked right back down by Michigan. They're going to have to try and find a way to do another good defensive stand. This time it will be with one Phoenix down and the Fire Giant respawning. This contesting may not be as easy.
Shouldn't be. In University of Michigan before, we're kind of in a situation where you either try to secure with the Giannis, which is a decent secure, or you just drop it. Should see them drop it this time just because it didn't work out for them this last time, and you kind of want to get better warding. The warding was really close to the Fire Giant and not the best in terms of being able to spot out this Redbird squad before they're able to sneak in. They do have this Loki, and that means that you want to be able to see it well, but if they're able to go on the offensive there, you might not have to worry about it.
Well, speaking of going on the offensive, Eric has found Star Trooper early on, so this fight's already gone to a 5v4. And coming in on the back end, Eric has found a double kill onto Grandpops. He's going to try and look for him and make that a triple kill. Brandon will find Valkyrie off the back end of this fight, chasing deep into the enemy Phoenix side. And you know what? Forget the Fire Giant. They may be looking for the final kill and the Titan, as Eric, he's going to try and bully inside the fountain, but that healing's a little too much. So Wolverines instead will focus their attention to the Titan. Cook, he's going to get in the middle, do everything he can, but it's not going to help. Dia's side comes through. Kid from Brooklyn getting that kill, and the Titan falling with him. Game number 1 goes the way of the Wolverines.
And outside of that, Fire Giant steals. What a convincing victory here for University of Michigan. Everyone pitching out through and through, as even the Sobek getting involved with a lot of kill participation. And this comp works so well for them, having all this CC that they can layer on. But then these team fights, when it came time for them around the objectives, they just did exactly that. Pluck somebody in, and then suddenly it was an Artemis ultimate being dropped, or just the damage, raw damage from the Giannis being enough to take them instantly out of the fights. And from there, 4v5s are going to be hard to win, especially with the XP and gold difference we saw.
Absolute great game to watch, honestly. Unfortunate for Illinois State Redbirds. However, they do have another chance to bring this one back and take us to a game number 3. But in order to tell us how that's going to happen, we're going to go ahead and send it back to the desk to break this one down and see what we may be looking forward to in game number 2.
Thank you, Vengeance and Bastion there. Sorry about that, guys. Appreciate you. But yeah, Blur, Artemis is pretty good. I think we can safe to say, after that first game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely pretty good. Oh, sorry, excuse me. This is very unprofessional. I better actually take this call because I'll pick up this phone because I definitely called that right there. This team plays around whoever gets a lead. Whatever ends up happening, this team just runs off with it. Eric was playing Magical Loki for 2/3 of that game. The fact that that game went completely on its head, it's just, let's play out our solo lane. No, our solo lane's just going to get 2 solo kills in the first 2 minutes. That's absolutely insane coming out from Brandon. That allowed so much pressure, and the whole team played absolutely phenomenally, but I have to stress the importance of Connor's play the whole game. It's very difficult for the jungler to prioritize, oh, every lane's winning, I can just lean back and farm. But no, Connor was constantly like, I can get a kill here, I can go make a gank, I can make a play with the rest of the team. They were hyper focused the whole time on pushing every lead, and it's hard enough to do that when there's only one lane ahead. Doing that with all 3 is phenomenal work here.
Yeah, he just kind of had his pick of the litter, essentially, on what lane he wanted to go to, or anywhere, even in the jungle, getting some pressure there and on that Loki, and all around, like you mentioned, a very dominant performance there. And with that, before we head and jump into game 2, we're going to go and set a quick break while we get all set up, and we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody, to Collegiate AGL. As we got Game 2 on our hands, as we're just going to kind of jump right into picks and bans as we kind of discuss Game 1. Illinois State Redbirds, they're going to opt after that loss to take the first overall pick, and we discussed a little bit between the break, but one thing I noticed right there, after that on her double kill there, 3 Spectrals came out for University of Michigan. Right off the bat.
They certainly did, and I think that definitely helped Michigan realize that while they're good, they have to be careful not to overextend. They got a little bit sloppy towards that mid-game, but it's not throwing, it's just making the games more interesting for us to watch, I would say. But the way that they've been playing this team comp, it's very difficult for Illinois to look here and go, what was the problem? It was like, well, we got our solo lane got soloed twice in like 2 minutes, and then every fight that pretty much went on was just a trade 1-for-1. We saw the Hunters both get kills on the supports. We saw mid lane, mid trade out jungle in this situation, and it just ended up favoring this kind of very scrappy, brawly style that University of Michigan ended up loving to play around that we've seen. So it's very difficult to sort of want to keep that kind of situation going, but at the same time, you can't take this to a late game because, well, Illinois will had such difficulty there. I do think, though, that this Giannis ban is well-deserved. Very well-deserved.
Yeah, like you mentioned before the break, that played Loki there, just came in very much, was going in the back line, getting some picks, so just off that burst damage, able to use that portal effectively. But as we see that ban, do you expect any others as far as that early phase that might be picked away? I mean, there was a lot of pressure in all lanes, but do you really want to ban Guan and Artemis and Sobek? Like, are those really fans that you want to have to ban in your top 3?
Not if I'm perfectly honest. No, there's still some other very scary things. The Athena would still be on the tail. Gilgamesh would still be on the tail. And you know that Connor would absolutely love a Gilgamesh in the way that they've been playing. So I don't think that that's something that they can necessarily afford to just give up. Though with this first pick, they could look to try and see whether or not University of Michigan would be comfortable giving some of those things up. They could still ban, say, the Athena and Ymir, I believe, were 2 of their bans last game. They were the ones who banned. It was Michigan who banned Gilgamesh on first pick. So there's still some potential here for Illinois to get something good. I think it was Seoul. I think it was Seoul, Ymir, and Athena were the top 3 for Illinois last game. So something's changing already here.
Yeah, no, some things are changing, although some things aren't. Ymir getting banned away. I mean, when that first pick, like you mentioned, leaving some stuff open. Is the Gilgamesh still open? I know you mentioned some of those picks, the Soul, some Guan Yu, of course, and the Sobek as well, that's still open. So it's definitely some things we could see picked or banned here that could be changing up. But yeah, no, definitely some strong picks there, and not a whole lot that I feel like they can change as far as that draft one. I mean, especially when you have all 3 lanes losing pressure, it's hard to change 3 bans that are going to change that around just like that.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing Illinois, though, flip that on its head. It's, okay, here's the things that didn't go well for us. How do we ban that? Let's look at it as what went well for us. Can we repick that? Things like this Loki, I really liked. We saw a lot of potential from this Loki, especially when they, towards the end of the game, they're definitely starting to come in and really help find those targets they needed to, coming on with a double kill alongside the on her there. So something could be looking around there. I wouldn't mind seeing the repick of the Loki, but with that Gilgamesh ban here, Seoul is open, and Illinois State, maybe if they were scared enough to ban it, they might just pick it here out of not necessarily fear, but respect for knowing how strong it is. So they want to run that themselves. They are hovering it right now, and this isn't too bad for them. Nice bit of flex. I think that, though, this is more likely going to go into that duo lane, just so we can see a little bit more pressure come out in that lane. The on-her was good, but it kind of had some difficulties. Sol is a little bit safer with that disapparate, and the ultimate can still do a lot of work for them as well.
Yeah, and they did draft that Fafnir in game 1, and it really kind of puts that on the foot of Michigan of, hey, do you want us to get Soul Fafnir? You know, that classic combo, of course, paired with either a hunter or, you know, ability hunter there as well. So really kind of puts that in the court of University of Michigan. But initially, looks like they're not super caring, as they're just going to lock in their own ADC of the Apollo pick here.
Okay, well, We'll look at Apollo then. A little bit different, but same idea. Because technically the brother of Artemis, so I guess it's pretty much the same thing, really. I mean, that's how it works, right? It's still a late game hunter. It's still got relatively strong team fight potential, and the split push is devastating. I like this idea though from Michigan. Take away the Loki. I think this was a big linchpin for Illinois. And if you take that away from them, now where do they look for some kind of jungle pressure? Because this Loki is very good, and I expect Connor to be able to perform phenomenally on it as well.
Yeah, and he had a great game on the Rat. I mean, and Loki was really the only one that was really able to give him any sort of pressure back and any sort of worry on. I know he got a couple of focused down a couple of times there by the Loki, and as a jungler, hey, that hurt. Give me that. It's really easy to kind of do that here. So, like the Loki pick here, and with the Apollo as well, kind of touching back, is despite the Giannis being banned, I've really seen Michigan kind of favoring this kind of global pressure and presence, and they seem to excel at it.
They certainly do. It works out for them phenomenally every time, because it just means that they can constantly fuel this willingness and desire to fight and continue the fights. We saw lots of rotations very early on to sort of red buffs, because if they want to fight there, it meant that there was a Gold Fury. This was a team that, despite their constant thirst for kind of taking an aggressive stance, it was never done just because, well, we're in a lead and we got to pressure it. It was, if we press the red buff and they come to defend it, then we can poke them out, which means we can get the Gold Fury. If not, then we can still potentially try and trade the round and then set up for a better look at the Gold Fury, or just get the red buff, or go from there. Every fight was calculated and meticulous. I loved seeing that here from Michigan, and the Apollo and Loki both give good options to doing that. Apollo says, if you guys keep a fight going, I can come in late, or I can just start up a fight very effectively, or whatever. This Apollo has a lot of flexibility. Loki, fantastic facilitating some kind of engage as well from an unexpected angle. Fantastic kind of an engage. So Michigan right now have got a lot of gas that they can work with, and it's kind of back to that idea of it's Illinois who are on the back foot and looking for that safety. Fafnir and Kamazots this time. The Kamazot's definitely very, very safe, but I'm not a fan of this Fafnir, especially not after what we saw happen to it last game.
Yeah, they decided to run the Fafnir back, which we had kind of thought they might have, which didn't get a whole lot of pressure, but with the Loki being picked away, end up going for this Kamazot's. Not a bad matchup individually, but also in this backline, Apollo's real self-peel that he's usually really good in those against those assassins to kind of keep himself alive really kind of goes out the window with that Bat Out of Hell.
It does, and that can cause a little bit of problems, though. Again, it's whether or not Illinois want to or have the luxury of going in deep for it. I hope that they're actually going to be able to, because this comp does still look like it can get its heels in, and it is a little defeatist of us to sort of sit here going, oh, it's University of Michigan, they've got all the pressure. Illinois, if the game doesn't start with 2 solo kills for the enemy team, they aren't looking too bad. If they can hold down the fort, they've got a lot of pressure. If they can keep safe, then that means that they're not necessarily on a back foot. It's not winning as such, but it's not outright losing the game, which in some senses is winning. So take with that what you will.
Yeah, and I think that something they kind of hit in this draft that they missed in that first one is with that Kamazots, they're able to have that kind of early pressure to kind of bridge that if they need. When you have Solon, Fafnir, and the last pick where they had the Loki, he needs a little bit of help from those lanes to kind of secure those kills, make sure he's able to get in there with that invis, get the damage off, and secure that there. And when all 3 of your side lanes behind, Loki really can't do that until he builds the items to get that full damage. On the other side, though, with the Kamazot, he's got the leap, he's got that Bat Out of Hell, so he can really by himself kind of keep them in this early game. But with that wrapped up, and we've discussed that, Cerberus locked in here for the University of Michigan. Not exactly what I was expecting here as their last pick in the top phase.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I can see this going into the support as well. It has that sort of Polar Bear Mike-esque feel to it. It's aggressive. It sets up a lot, similar to the Sobek does. A little bit of that anti-heal coming through with the passive. Stygian Torment literally picking everyone up, playing fetch with them, saying, hey, you guys want like 3 targets that are all, exactly where they're going to be grouped up? Go nuts at that point. That really combos well with a nice, strong mage. Thinking about it, actually, if Eric really was feeling himself, he could go back to the Arpoche, and there's a huge amount of zoning control if they really wanted to. But that might be a touch too spicy. But in a best of 3, if you're up a game, maybe you throw in some of that spice. The Morrigan taken away here, Chernobog taken away from Illinois. That one surprises me that it's Illinois who banned the Chernobog. I would have thought at this point you'd have gone, or maybe we take the Chernobog ourselves and run this sole ADC, but I guess not. They're more concerned that they could be seeing a double hunter comp here.
Yeah, and if it's especially a pick that they don't want to play, whether they're not comfortable, don't feel strong on it, or just something that they're not looking for in this draft, don't mind banning it away, because Apollo Chernobog, usually it's one on each side. Each team gets a global ult. Having both in the same, that'd be pretty scary to face with, but kind of wrapping up for Michigan, another mid lane ban as they ban out this Raijin, and still waiting on that last frame for Illinois boys, but kind of alludes to me that University of Michigan is kind of looking for kind of their mid pick they've already got in the bag. So don't know if we'll see that Oposh we've been alluding to earlier. Probably see something a little bit more meta. Scylla still open as Honors the last fan that gets through here, but there's a lot of good picks that I could see here in this draft.
So another ADC ban from Illinois against the University of Michigan with the Apollo. Are they seriously expecting one of those two hunters to go mid? Either way, what we're looking at, most likely solo lane and mid lane here for Michigan. Illinois is looking solo lane and mid lane as well, so it's okay to see that. We could see the soul flex still if they feel so inclined. Achilles leads me to believe that this Cerberus is going to be the support here, but both Achilles can run support, and if you want to be aggressive in this early, in sort of the early laning phase, you can definitely do that with some Achilles. If you want to run like almost like this pseudo second jungle, you pick up a Mannequins or Bluestone, you just go absolutely aggressive. And you try and burn down the game super early and fast. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan toy around with that idea, as they've got a comfortable situation they're finding themselves in against what Illinois have drafted so far. But a Guan Yu looking at here, I guess, similar to the idea with Michigan with Loki. If, hey, this was doing really well for you, mind if we take this now? And they are going to go ahead and grab up the Guan Yu. Let's hope that Illinois are able to do as well as we saw Michigan do with it.
Yeah, and that Achilles pick as well, like you mentioned, just that flexibility, really can get any of the starters that he wants, or even go with kind of a mid to late game, getting that Sundering Axe, has a lot of that there, and specifically in the Guan matchup, does have that shield bash to stop that Talu assault, so he can really stop a lot of that Guan Yu damage and wave clear. And after Brandon, after that first game, if he wants Achilles, whatever he wants, Bologna, I'd give it to him, so I'd love to see him highlight that over in the solo lane, but Illinois State Redbirds, they're kind of taking all the draft. They said, let's have the Guan, let's have the Artemis, and we'll round that out with what we can.
Okay. This feels like a much nicer draft for the Fafnir as well. You've had that soul flex pick potential that you wanted, and I guess the idea as well is you've got Chernobog and Onher here. These are two gods who do well into Artemis, so they were kind of secretly shadow banning away towards the Artemis, which maybe we see University of Michigan could have looked at here, because they essentially wasted their two bans at that point. They banned mid laners thinking the soul was going to be mid, so well played by Illinois here in the early stages of the game. And I say yes, the early stages of the game. I genuinely believe picks and bans are just as important as the actual game themselves. You can set up yourself so well here, and Eric, are you teasing me? Are you playing with my heart here? You're hovering the up wash. Don't do this to me. You gotta, if you're gonna show me the up wash, go ahead and lock it in. I mean, it's actually, like, no memes aside, you've got Sol who has a self here, Fafnir has a self heal, Kamazotz has heals, Guan has heals. There are 4 healers on this team. That's some really good anti-heal right there. And as we've seen the way that Eric plays this god, it's fantastic zone control, and every objective you have nigh uncontestable secure with the corpse explosion.
Yeah, and it's specifically Illinois State's trying to take that draft of that kind of dive heavy. They got the Kamazotz, the Guan Yu, Fafnir that can really jump in there, and of course Sol and Artemis that kind of like to be closer as far as these hunters go. They really have that Oposh that has some great self-heal. I mean, Guan Yu, he has a lot of damage in his ult, but does he really want to sit an Oposh ult the entire time while that's going off? Like, Kamazotz outside his ult really is going to have to eat a lot of that damage too, so as much as I'm not a huge fan of Oposh in this draft, and after winning game 1 the way they did, I'm very much more than just humoring it. I'd love to see it here for game 2.
And don't forget as well that this the last time we saw this Alpash was when you were still having to spend 1,600 gold on boots to then go in. Now you've got a god who can effectively go, oh, I want to build a Warlock staff if I want to take this a little bit later. I want to build the Chronos pendant and go super early for that CDR and get that Staff of Mirrodin, which we saw, which with Alpash means that you get a fantastic just denial of huge amounts of zone with the corpses coming out. So the fact that we're now seeing this on the next patch where things are a lot faster, a lot more aggressive, and you can get to those power spikes better, it's going to be a lot easier for Eric to start joining with these team fights and making a huge impact. So I'm expecting this to be played all around that mid lane and all around Eric again here.
Yeah, well, we got an Alpash in this game. We've got some stolen picks away, but we'll get it over to the cast and see if the Redbirds are going to be waving that white flag and going home 0-2, or if maybe they can throw it to Game 3. Bash and Vengeance, go ahead and take it away, guys.
Thank you guys on the desk, and Bashin, we're here yet again. Good old, can we get it to Game 3, or will this be it for us? Do or die for the Illinois State Redbirds in this tournament so far. University of Michigan looking to advance on, and this is definitely an interesting comp to try and do it with.
Well, I've got to be honest, Vengeance. I'm excited anytime I get to see an Alpash in a game. And the last time we saw it at Albion, it did come away with a victory. So a lot to be said for the fact that 100% win rate on this Alpash so far. If it's able to survive the dive coming out of the Guan Yu Camazotz, all the healing mentioned, it can be pretty good.
Well, if Illinois State want a chance at winning this game and keeping it from going like last game, they're going to need their solo laner not to have a reoccurrence, which we already have seen so far with that first blood happening for Brandon. But we're also going to need to see a little bit more out of the jungler early on. He had that Loki, but wasn't using that ultimate very aggressively early on. So hopefully for this game, we can see that line up, help give Redbirds a chance at victory. Whereas Michigan, it seems like all they need to do is let Brandon do what he wants, and Kano and Eric can just run the map anywhere else.
Well, it's hard to argue with that strategy considering how well it worked in the first game. They're already out to a similar start. The Fighter's Mask picked up once again. All that damage on the Achilles makes them look pretty good, but the gank coming out.
And this rotation early on gives Pies the second kill for the Wolverines. Oh, and look how close they are in the jungle as well. A little bit of a poke, but there's nothing that's going to come off it. Recognizing that there's other teammates there as well. So, Valkyrie, counter rotation extremely late. Gets a little poke off. But unfortunately, nothing's going to come the way of it for the Redbirds. And we even see something a little more interesting. Star Trooper on this soul is forced under tower. Concerned about the damage that Eric brings already.
That's typically what we see with Soul having a lot of pressure most times in this mid lane, but of course the Alpash with those corps can do a big amount of burst damage. Now something else we typically don't see a lot is the Loki invading onto a Camazotz. With Camazotz having that healing, they typically do have an early game fight potential. It's just not working out for them here, and a blue buff invade coming out as well.
Brandon with his lead is more than happy to help take this one away. And the interesting thing, as you mentioned, is that Kano on this Loki is being more aggressive than Valkyrie on the Camazotz, who's known for the early aggression and damage he brings. So this early game already not looking good for the Redbirds. University of Michigan, as the desk mentioned, they possibly just be looking for that faster end game. And so far, they look like they more than know what they're doing to achieve it.
They definitely have plenty of pressure on the map to make it happen. In this Achilles, which if they make early rotations, can certainly make a lot happen with that execution. Cerberus, a good outlet for pressure. And then the rotations coming from Apollo can make it very difficult to get out. We'll see if the Redbirds are able to deal with this and get towards this later game, where if they do of course have this double hunter comp, which scales really well into the late game, and they have the Guan Yu Camazotz if they're able to get back on track to try to get them to that mid to later stages where the hunters can pick up the rest of that slack and hopefully get them to that game 3 you mentioned earlier.
Now, one thing that is a little different this time around for the Redbirds is Cook. He is about level on XP, only slightly behind from that first kill, but he's done a good job of staying safe outside of that since then. We don't already see this 2-3-0 solo laner and Brandon. However, on this dual lane side, the the Wolverines, they're trying to take everything they can away little by little. And they're unafraid to do so, even with Pies of Doom so low. Brooklyn just playing so aggressive on the enemy side.
And it makes sense. Apollo's going to have that early on aggression, especially with the passive. Whenever they get to the audacity, they just do so much damage having the auto attacks. And working into this bow build again is going to get you to that really fast auto attack speed stage really early on, the sustain from the Cal. The difference being it looks like we might see what could be an Atlanta's bow coming out of this Artemis. And that makes for some early power, some good attack speed, and some pin. We haven't seen it as much as we used to, but within this new build style, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, going every single bow, you've got the attack speed, you've got the power, you get the pen, you even have the availability of going Kinsai or Xe to combo with it. I mean, it's just, ADC builds, they're just so diverse nowadays,
Yeah, they ask for more flexibility with the boots, and then somehow they find a way to do just, all right, we're going to pick one tree and run down the entire list of items within that tree and take all variability out of it, because before it was just, okay, we buy a bunch of crit items. Now, well, we're just going to buy a bunch of bows instead. So they find a way to do this every time. It's fine. That's just how ADCs are, but talking about finding a way to do it again, University of Michigan are finding a way to get themselves a lead again. Now around 1,200, the difference between these two. At 5 minutes, though, versus the greater difference we saw in Game 1 at this 1,500 mark early on at like 2 minutes, it's still going to start to pile up if this Redbird squad can't do something about it soon.
So, University of Michigan have quite the presence. If Pies of Doom by himself is able to force the ultimate of Grand Pops with just using one ability.
Oh, the Plosh ult.
Yeah, this is this is what the desk was talking about. That ultimate covers so much, and you do not want to fight in it. And unfortunately for Star Trooper, he got caught fighting in it.
It also makes a lot of sense because you look at the escape utilities for both of these hunters and it's not really there. Soul has the Evaporate, of course, to use and the immunity out of it, but there's no way to dash immediately out of that ultimate. Same thing for Artemis. They do have the movement speed on the 2, but you're still stuck in it. You can't just immediately get out, and that's going to be something to keep in mind, especially if they're able to be CC'd and kind of locked in place. That is a ton of damage, and this level 8 Alpwash already, big lead.
Oh, we have a gank coming in from Redbirds this time, and it does go in their favor. The blink from Valkyrie is going to be able to find the kill for himself. But unfortunately, in mid lane, Eric gets another kill onto Star Trooper with the 3-man diving under the tier 1 tower. So we do see that the kill is answered back immediately. Redbirds, they'll get a little bit of an advantage for the dual lane. Unfortunately, this is costing their mid, and that's a 2.5, 3 level lead for an Opwash. I think I'm more scared of that than I am in Apollo.
Certainly something to be concerned about, and we know that Kano is really good at utilizing that pressure in the mid lane and just spilling it out into the other lanes, gets themselves a lead. Though this Camazotz, to some credit, has been able to keep that pretty close, and we don't see what we saw in the first game, which was a 2 or 3 level lead early on the Ratatosker. So shout out to them for being able to do that. Also in the solo lane, still, we talked about it a little bit ago, is this lead hasn't grown after the first kill, which is a shout out to Cook being able to play this Guan Yu pick a little bit better and having that healing for themselves is making a difference. We'll see if it spills over into these team fights, because that's also where Brandon had one of the biggest impacts, was just this unkillable target that also had a ton of damage.
This is definitely something that is already going better for the Redbirds. Unfortunately, though, it may not be going that much better soon, as Brandon does find the solo kill on a Cook, but there's a double rotation coming in from the support and jungler, and they will return the kill immediately. So even though we are looking at a 2-1-0 Brandon, it is going to be a kill that falls to the way of the jungler, who now finds himself 2-0-0 and has a level advantage over Kano. Over in the dual lane, we see the Apollo ultimate used to come in. Unfortunately for him, Tusky's there to stop anything else. So we see Grand Pops gets out very cleanly and is feeling very safe right now under the tower.
Unfortunate. The landing just doesn't quite work out there, and this Outwash is comfortable enough to just kind of roam all over the jungle, not worried about the safety, and that's something to be concerned about. But another thing that could potentially be concerning is this gank. Server a little bit low, and it looks like that one won't actually happen just yet. Gold Fury is on the map, however, and we could see that pretty early for University of Michigan. They do have this mid control and that big ultimate from the Outposh, as well as the Corpse Explosion to make securing look pretty well if they want to look that way.
Oh, did I say it was a 2.5, 3 level lead in the mid earlier? It's 4 now. Somebody from Redbirds needs to get this Opwash under control because he is finding himself too huge, and Valkyrie's going to try that, but fortunately from him, the Crypts have been released, taking all of that damage, trying to fight it within the ultimate, and Eric just finds himself some safety, forces the ultimate with the Corpse Rush as well, which, if that ult doesn't go off, that explosion kills Valkyrie 100%, and we see probably a level 12 Opwash.
Quite possible, but for the moment, still going to be level 11. Could change with this red buff invade that's coming out. University of Michigan starting to use this pressure on the invades, and you really like to see that from these teams. You have it, might as well use it, and get this Loki a bit more of an advantage for themselves. Loki can certainly carry a game when they get to the late game. This Outposh is making it easy for him as we see the gank coming out in mid lane, and Kano gets another kill to help them get there.
More than enough damage before the Disapparate goes off. Brandon finds his 3rd kill in the solo lane. Still only about a level lead so far. Possibly be able to increase that finally at last to a 2-level lead. There was farming, but we do see the Gold Fury is going to be pulled by the Wolverines duo lane. They want to get this started. Eric's here as well. And now that all 4 members are showing up, the only one not here is their solo laner. They're going to take this one down pretty quickly, and no one from Redbirds is any of the wiser about it. They're just going to be sitting where they are. Notice that goes down and sit there, look at the gold lead, and get a little sad.
Quite a gold lead coming out here. Almost 5,000 gold at 11 minutes is nothing to scoff at, and it gives a really nice cushion for this University of Michigan squad. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but you saw exactly what they're going to do right there. They get the opportunity to go to Gold Fury, just drop the corpse all around it, and even if the Redbirds went in, it's very unlikely that they out-secure it. That corpse explosion just so good at what it does, and that immediate burst damage that allows you to feel pretty good about it, though. We did see in the first game a little bit of a missed timing on the Giannis ultimate, so keep an eye on if they want to 50-50 some of these objectives. There could be a little bit of worry because of that first game.
Well, you know, the Giannis ultimate does have its wind up. Opwash ultimate, pretty instant, damage over time. Oh, you also have corpse explosions to back it up. Whereas we see that not backing up is Valkyrie. He's getting Kano. His mid laner was taken down in return, and Grab Pops with the help of his jungler, or yes, the jungler is going to find the kill onto the ADC of the Wolverines. We do see the tier 1 mid tower fall in return, however, so we do find a couple of kills. Unfortunately, it is going to cost them map pressure.
Good to see them get that kill onto the Apollo. This Artemis can carry, certainly, and you want to get them to this late game stage where they're going to be pretty effective at trying to do that at least, and the Apollo's not going to scale quite as well as the Artemis does. Just really a late game oriented hunter in general is this Artemis. Though we do see a gank starting to come out here. Cerberus trapped in between, and it looks like Trap could be sprung onto the Achilles here, but should get out for just a moment.
Brandon getting safer towards his tier 1 tower, so Redbirds will not continue to chase that one down. We do see Eric take a little bit of aggressive positioning, going back just to try and clear the way, but there are 3 members here. They're going to go over the wall. They want to find him. The Crypts are released yet again. Aegis as well. They're going to get an ultimate plus Aegis down just for a little bit of pressure on mid. Unfortunately, though, Eric's coming right back out. This is the level 14 Opwash. Unafraid of coming back out to fight you. Honestly, even with his ultimate down, those corpses do more than enough damage, but we see a possible gank onto this right-hand side. The cavalry charge coming out. He does not hit the stun, but Kano is here, gets the stun of his own. The damage coming through, the execute as well to clean it up and to get out. The Redbirds will not be able to trade away this kill. Oh, this could be worse though, because with that tier 1 mid down, here comes the mid and support stitching torment is used. Beads is forced to separate. It's not in time. Pies of Doom gets the kill, and we see the dragon transformation coming through. No one caught inside of it, so there will be no poison applied, and instead Wolverines will take their aggressive advantage, invade the blue buff, secure it, and they find Valkyrie trying to get aggressive, forcing him back to the tier 2. Now they will finally retreat out. This could possibly be a Pyromancer.
Could be a Pyromancer, and University of Michigan are kind of just doing whatever they want at this point. They're able to execute this comp really well, and we saw it over there in the solo lane. This Achilles timing it right on the Loki damage perfectly to instantly get the execute, but Ultimate coming out here as Camazotz wants to try to contest. They have the corpses down, might be able to get it, and they are able to secure that one down, but fight on the backside.
Wolverines get the Pyromancer that they started, and they baited Valkyrie a little too much because here comes Kid from Brooklyn from the sky. Takes one down. Brandon will take Cook down as well. 2 for none, and the Pyromancer. And they're looking at mid. They want to try and find this soul possibly again, but being smart, Super Trooper staying under the tower, not going to allow himself to be picked that easily. Whereas we do see Pies of Doom. He's the one who's going to have to be a little careful here because that soul's still going to hurt you quite a bit, even though you are a tank. But he's able to leap over the wall, get towards safety. Gonna do a little bit of a lazy back, but I was gonna say I'm not sure that the Redbirds are gonna just keep that from happening.
Achilles rotating over, looks for the gank, but doesn't want it after the trap. And low HP bar is really why they didn't look towards that mid lane. But you get 2 kills, of course, and the Pyromancer is a lot of value. With Gold Fury coming down soon, we'll likely see that. And this Primal Fury will make it a lot easier for them to look towards Fire Giant afterwards. With this much momentum, that's probably what happens is Gold Fury to Fire Giant. We'll see it, but a gank on to Artemis.
What a blink coming out. Brandon with the stun. He might be trying to find the execute, but he will not be able to because the hammer stun comes through. Stygian Torment gets canceled out thanks to the dragon transformation coming in from Can't Find. He's able to make sure he's not pulled away. He's actually going to try and find a little aggression himself. Unfortunately, though, for Super Troopers, he's being aggressed onto by Brandon. And with 2 other members there, Wolverines are just going to go back, take down the Primal Fury. And Redbirds, they're not going to be here in time. They'll show up after the fact. Have to use the hammer stun to try and retreat it out, but Kano isn't gonna make it that easy. The ultimate for the stun, the Fury Blades comes through. He finds the kill, and no one else is able to find anyone lurking, so they will instead go back, reset, get whatever gold spent they can. And for the duo lane, however, they want this tier 1.
Should be able to look at it as it's just a Artemis left to defend. Cerberus can certainly tank this one up, and the wave will make it all but easy for them to take it down. And now can start to put a little pressure on this T2 if they wanted to, but Soul is a little bit local as well as this Camazotz. Something I got to talk about though, now that we're on the Camazotz, is this double stacking coming out. Something I'm not too happy about, especially from behind. You generally want that power spike, especially knowing that this Loki is ahead of you going into the trance, into the Soul Eater. Definitely delays that a bit. Once it's online, that's a lot of power, but in the meantime, it's certainly not.
This is definitely a very risky decision because this means that not only are you confident in your team's ability in the late game, you're confident that your entire team will make it to the late game, and that you have to take a look at the mid as well. He's got 1 completed item almost 18 minutes in. This is a tier 2 pen item he's still working on.
Not having the pin online does handicap things a little bit. Now, something we do see talking about pin is a decent amount coming out of this Oplosh. Already has a Karen's coin, of course. The Typhon's Fang provides extra pin as well, and might be working into that Staff of Mirrodin possibly to stack onto this Spear of Desolation. Rotations, though, coming out into the solo lane, they could be some pressure applied to Brandon.
Whatever pressure is attempting to be applied, he's very tanky, and Pies of Doom's on the back end to help make sure that he's not gonna have to deal with anyone but Valkyrie. So just as soon as it started, it is ended. But in the meantime, Brooklyn may be saying, no, we're gonna be the ones to continue this fight, because in comes the cavalry dropping down from the sky. He's off the mark, but with the teammates here, this tower fight is going to happen. They're putting pressure down. Unfortunately, the support's caught out a little bit. He's going to get some poison spread for the transformation, but on the back end, Brandon is going after the solo. Finds him. Brooklyn will find the support as well. Kano gets Star Trooper. Brandon gets a double kill onto the jungler. This leaves one alive, and he's hunting Kano, but finding out he's the last one alive, I think he's going to rethink that one. The Fire Giant is now started up.
Fire Giant will go down pretty easily here for University of Michigan. They kill all but the Artemis, and Artemis is not local to try to put up a defense around this one and would have a pretty difficult time trying to do it, though. A couple low HP bars here for University of Michigan. They can, however, start to work down these last two towers that are standing, the three T2s that are up for them, and then probably pretty soon after the Phoenixes, they have a commanding lead of 13k at this point, and a lot of XP, especially around the mid lane, which is now a 7-level lead for this Outposh.
Can Eric be stopped at this point? I don't think I've seen him fall once. It's a 14k goal lead, a 21 XP lead, and we're only 20 minutes in. There's only 2 tier 2 standing as well, and the kills are 17-4. For a while, this game wasn't looking like last, but the kills were pretty much in the same spot.
The goal difference in XP, though, is quite a bit bigger this time around. And last time we saw them finish around 23 minutes, we could see something around that mark as well, as it just looks like the Redbirds have not been able to put together a good team fight. Every time they're a bit spread out or just discombobulated within this, not being able to apply the damage. And at this point, the level differences are really starting to hinder them, as they can't even take 1v2 sometimes, but Loki trying to take one here.
He's going for the 1v3. Unfortunately, looks like he's going to be punished for it as Cook cleans up the kill. But Kano does, with his own dot damage pool, get the return kill onto Cook. So this puts us in a 4v4, but this is a Fire Giant team. City Torment after the Dragon Transformation this time. And yeah, no, kid, you're not making it out of this one. Sit down. Brandon takes that kill down away. 2 for 1 so far, 4v3. Again, this is a Fire Giant squad. They have the split push going on as well. The mid Phoenix has fallen. The kid from Brooklyn. They're going to go to the right-hand side, and Super Troopers caught out of position. They don't even need to take this Phoenix at this point. They're looking in the Titan room. Brandon with the Sunder. He wants to try and find the kill, but sitting on the tower from the Crypts used yet again. Artemis is going to use her own ultimate, send Tusky out, but it's not going to be enough so far. Titan's going to get quite a bit of damage on. Brandon's going to try and self-heal. Unfortunately for him, Grandpops will get the kill from Titan. It doesn't matter, though. The Titan is gone. Game number 2. The set goes the way of the Michigan Wolverines.
They finally get the shutdown on the 8-2 Achilles, but it doesn't matter if it comes at the very end of the game. And University of Michigan, with a different comp, do the exact same thing. They get early pressure and just steamroll this team from there, able to play a lot out of this outposh from the mid. And then Brandon pretty much did the exact same thing that they did in the first game. Got some early kills onto this Guan Yu, and then were able to just do whatever they wanted in the jungle from that point on. 8-2-3 for this Achilles, and a clean stat line for this Outposh out of the mid lane of 2-0-8.
Impressive gameplay for Michigan Wolverines game number 2, especially Eric on that Outposh stat line that is not normal for Outposh players to see. But for the breaking down this set overall, we do have the desk. Toss it back to one more time, guys. Tell us what you've seen.
Thank you guys again for such a wonderful cast, and I don't think Eric fell once in both those games, and he played what would most be considered some of the top mid laners in the Giannis, and also what most people consider the Bottas in the Aposh, and played both pretty flawlessly.
Yeah, I would have poured one out for the homies who needed it, but unfortunately I don't have a container big enough to pour out what ended up happening. Multiple members from Illinois State just constantly harassed the entire game. We saw 7-level lead in the mid lane, and that's just absolutely dominant. In 21 minutes, there are a couple of ways that you can avoid situations where you could make a mistake or your opponent could punish you for any kind of small misstep. One is to not make any. The other is to end the game so quickly that they don't even have a chance to occur. And that's what we saw here from University of Michigan. They have continued to constantly cause problems. And it's very apparent that this team doesn't just go, we feed the hot hand. They have everyone who has the potential to go, I'm just going to make a play at this point. We saw Brandon again solo out the cook at the beginning of the game and just run the solo lane from there. Sure, they had a couple of instances where they would fall, but it cost multiple members from Illinois their time and effort and energy to rotate. And multiple times we saw University of Michigan would punish that by either pushing down the mid, looking at other objectives, counter-rotating on it to clean up even further. Whatever it was that Illinois did, Michigan just seemed to have the answer for it, and then some.
Yeah, and all 5 of their players seem to have some great answers for this test that was Illinois State. But with that, that's going to wrap up our cast today. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this collegiate week here. They will be going up against UW-Madison next week in the quarterfinals. So be tuning in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday next week, as we'll have some more collegiate games, some semifinals, as well as some of the finals from our AGL leagues all across. So with that, thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, thank you, Supersonic Blur, for being on the cast here with me. Thank you to Vengeance Bastion for a wonderful cast. Ted, on our wonderful producer for this. And with that, you guys have a great rest of your week up ahead, and have a good night.
Take care.